This is not necessarily a Tesla fighter. Audi's first all-electric SUV is very much its own thing, with a different look and a different feel than anything Tesla has to offer, plus an interior that is frankly on another level. But with a relatively meager 204 miles of range and a starting price of about $75,000, the e-Tron isn't for everybody. Is it right for you? Let's hit the road and find out. Okay, so what exactly is the e-Tron? Well, it's a two-row, five-passenger SUV technically, but in my eye, it fits more in the tall wagon template of, say, an Audi Allroad than a proper SUV like the Q7. But it certainly has all the cargo space and practicality of a bigger, taller SUV. In reality, that elevated driving position here is as much a factor of the car's batteries as any SUV pretenses. Fitting the battery pack down low has some obvious benefits when it comes to handling, as putting the weight of those batteries in the floor means better cornering. But it also means everything in the interior has to go up by a couple of inches, elevating the driving position slightly. Sitting ahead and behind of that battery pack is a pair of electric motors, together providing that Quattro-branded all-wheel drive and a whopping 400 horsepower. From a practicality standpoint, that equates to a healthy 4,000 pounds of towing. From a performance standpoint, try a 0 to 60 in 5.5 seconds. But really, if you're more worried about performance, you're looking at the wrong car. Here's why. The e-Tron will do the 0 to 60 sprint in 5.5 seconds, which is better than respectable. That's properly quick, especially for an SUV of this size. But despite having a dynamic mode that hunkers the car down to give you better handling, the harder you push this car into the corners, the more you realize that that's not really what this car is about. It just doesn't reward being aggressive, and that's okay. Not every car has to be a sports car, and this car certainly is not a sports car. What it is incredibly comfortable and honestly really relaxing. The suspension is very compliant, it's incredibly quiet in here, and even the engine noise that makes at low speeds, that kind of futuristic whir, I find that to be very relaxing and oddly soothing. But if there's one part of this car that's maybe a little bit too relaxed for me, it's the regen braking. Regen braking on an EV is basically what happens when you lift your foot off of the accelerator. Some cars have very aggressive regen, like the Nissan Leaf, which you can basically drive with just one foot. You take your foot off the gas and the car will slow down and come to a complete stop. And as a person who drives a lot of EVs, that's actually what I prefer. What happens in the e-Tron, though, is, well, take my foot off the accelerator and nothing. It just coasts forward like a normal gasoline-powered car. You can request more regen by tapping the left paddle here, but even then, in maximum setting, it still doesn't slow down very aggressively when I take my foot off of the gas. And annoyingly, if I set the cruise control and take it back off again, it resets the regen back to normal, which is to say, no regen at all. So maybe that's a little bit too relaxing, but overall, this is, again, a very comfortable, very compliant, very nice place to be, and a lot of that comes down to the interior. So let's pull over and take a closer look at that. There's a lot to talk about inside the e-Tron, but I want to start with something that we don't typically focus on, and that's the shifter, because it's very distinctive. It's this horizontal bar that looks on the outside like you might move the whole thing, but actually it's just this chrome piece on the left that you shift. Push it forward to go into reverse, pull it back to go into drive, and push the button for park on the side. It has actually a really nice feel, and because it's so compact, it leaves lots of room in here for this big cubby between the seats, which has a wireless charger port for your phone, plus a couple of USB ports too, and not one but two touchscreens. This is Audi's MMI Response, and on the bottom we've got mostly HVAC controls, setting temperature. I can set the seat heater on or the air conditioned seat if I want to, but weirdly the massaging seats are actually controlled up top. Push the button on the side of the seat and I can get myself a nice invigorating massage. Everything else on the top here is mostly to do with infotainment duties. I've got everything from media, navigation, we've got satellite imagery thanks to Google Maps and the active data connection in the car. We've also got Android Auto and Apple CarPlay compatibility built right in, which is nice too. But if that's not enough displays for you, there's a third one lurking here behind the steering wheel. Again, we've got satellite imagery here on Audi's virtual dashboard, but I can toggle through and get all sorts of information about capacity, consumption, amount of range remaining, and ultimately, it's a really comprehensive system with 3 displays and inside of a very nice interior with good materials. We've got open pore wood here, and even such niceties as an air freshener system with 2 separate scents I can choose from based on which season I'm in. We've got the winter scent going right now, and it's very invigorating. All of this, every component in here is miles ahead of anything Tesla's putting inside of any of their cars, but then Tesla does have one key advantage. The Audi E-Tron has an EPA-rated range of 204 miles. You won't need a calculator to figure out that's significantly less than the newly updated Model S long range that I just reviewed, which will now do 370 miles on a charge. That's not quite twice the range, but it's awfully close. Now, more range and efficiency are always better, and for sure, 370 miles is probably enough to abolish range anxiety from all but the most fickle of drivers, but I'm inclined to say that 200 miles is plenty enough for most, especially when that range is as usable as is the range on offer by the e-Tron. While I found the EPA rating system to be quite accurate in real-world usage, some EVs fare worse when faced with their 2 greatest challenges: highway speed and cold temperatures. Highway speeds are a challenge because of the force created by aerodynamic drag, which increases exponentially as the car accelerates. A small increase in speed means a big increase in drag and potentially a big decrease in range. But the e-Tron always did a remarkably good job of providing valid estimates for me, even when I was spending hours droning down the highway. And while the e-Tron is not immune to range loss in cold weather, as temperatures dropped down to the freezing point, the car was still holding on to between 85 and 90% of its maximum range. That's far better than much of the competition. Yes, the Model S long range will still go much farther on a cold day, but the e-Tron does have one last trick up its sleeve. This is an Electrify America charger, one of about 2,000 that the company hopes to have deployed by the end of the year, spread across about 500 different locations. Now, that's about a third of the number of chargers that Tesla has deployed in its supercharger network thus far, but these suckers, they pack a punch. This can put out up to 350 kilowatts, which is about a third more than even Tesla's new V3 superchargers, which themselves are just starting to roll out across the nation. Now, real-world charging rates depend on a dozen different factors, including air temperature and vehicle charge state and even vehicle efficiency. But if you were to roll in here on your e-Tron running on fumes, you could get up to 50 miles of range in just 10 minutes. And if you have a half an hour to kill, you could get up to 160. Sadly, that charging speed is going to cost you. A full charge of the e-Tron at an Electrify America station at its maximum rate of 150 kilowatts, starting with 5% remaining, cost me a whopping $58.95. Again, that's for about 200 miles of range. For comparison's sake, to get that much range in a 20 mpg SUV, you'd need about 10 gallons of gas, for an average price right now of just over $30. And that's assuming you need premium fuel. That's almost half the cost. Thankfully, Audi is including 1,000 kilowatt hours of charging for free, the equivalent of about 10 charges. Regardless, most of the time, most owners will be charging at home, where things make a lot more financial sense. Yes, home charging takes a lot longer overnight on a level 2 charger, but there a full tank of gas will only cost about $12 on average. And there's another reason you'll want to charge at home. After filming, another visit to the Electrify America charger resulted in a situation where the car refused to let go of the plug, leaving me stranded after the emergency underhood plug release failed. I did finally get the thing loose after over an hour, but this is a disconcertingly common problem reported by many e-Tron owners that Audi still doesn't have a fix for. So is the e-Tron the right car for you? Well, if you want to be ludicrous or if you have a sensitive disposition for range anxiety, you might want to be looking elsewhere. But for those looking for the ultimate in relaxed driving, the e-Tron is well worth considering. This thing is like a Zen cocoon on wheels. I immediately feel more relaxed whenever I slip behind the wheel, turn on the massaging seats, and waft my way home. If that seems like the ticket for you after a long and stressful day at work, then this might be your next car. That's what I think about the Audi E-Tron, but we want to know what you think. Let us know in comments, is this thing better than the Model S or the Model X, or which would you go for? Also, check out the site for our full review, and make sure you like and subscribe.